Welcome to another episode of Houston Art Tribe. I am Kay Sarver, and I am sitting here with Patrick McGrath Muniz, and we are in his studio, and I'm very excited to be here, by the way. I want to say that the first time I saw your work was just last year at the Big Show. And
the Lawndale Art Center.
Yeah, Lawndale Art Center, and it totally pulled me in. First, I emulated The Last Supper, or at least that's what I think the piece was. Yeah, it was on a dollar bill, I believe.
Yes.
Which was brilliant. It was brilliant, and I just stood there for the longest time. As much art as there was to see, and it was a great show. It really beckons you to look further, and suddenly I see another symbol or another thing, and I'm just so thrilled to find you. And I guess we could start. Well, first, what brought you to Houston?
Well, the thing that brought me to Houston was my wife, as an architect, and she's from El Salvador, Blanca. Yeah. Found a job here at Gensler, and that was 4 years ago, and that's the main reason we moved.
Yeah.
And so it's been already around four years here in Houston.
Yeah.
I'm originally from Puerto Rico,
yes.
But we've been living in different places in the States, in Florida and Georgia.
Yeah.
But we really wanted to explore Texas.
Yeah.
There was much of Texas that really brought our attention, that we really wanted to explore. And we're here, and we love it. Yeah.
I'm so glad you're here. It just adds to the richness of the art community here.
And that's what I like about the art community here, and the diversity, the cultural diversity of the city is what really the thing that I feel is the strongest.
Oh, it totally. Oh my gosh, yes, that's a big attraction for me too, big time. I think I love that you address issues. Honestly, feel like your work just is like holding up a mirror to our times and our culture. And so I'm curious, like I know you addressed climate change in some of the pieces. Maybe speak about it a little bit, or
right.
You wanna...
I think the issue of climate change has been in my work for already several years, but what really made it personal for me was being impacted by the previous hurricanes from last year. It was Harvey in Houston, Irma in Florida, where most of my family is right now, and of course Maria in Puerto Rico, where I lost my studio, and my childhood home and my mom's house was lost.
No.
And many of my friends were affected by that. So I felt that from that moment on, I really had to take the issue of climate change on a higher level. It was already part of my work, but I felt like it was a priority now.
Yes.
Because it was already impacting my way of living and my way of seeing the world and experiencing the world as an artist.
Totally. Boy, you really got hit from all angles with all three of those storms.
One after the other.
Major storms.
Yes.
I love that you do that, and it's just, I think it's so important, and because of your amazing, I think you've mastered painting in such a way that it just pulls the viewer in to see what you're saying, whether they get, I mean, they think it's pretty obvious, but not in an aggressive way, in a really easy way, I think, for a person to get the connection, for sure.
Well, here's the thing. I feel that if a work of art is beautiful, it already draws you. That's the first part.
Yes.
And if you already get your viewer's attention, then you can start to deliver the message.
Yes.
But if you do it in a more subtle way, multi-layered, because there are many more messages than just, it's not just about climate change. I have many other things going on in the work.
Oh my gosh.
So if you look at my paintings, you'll find all sorts of traditions, cultures, languages, and traditions that speak to spirituality, politics, religion, and of course climate change is one big part of it, but there are also personal stories here, history, art history, Spanish colonial iconography, and all of that. And I really want to reach out and cover as many bases as possible. I think it's become more obsessive over time. Perhaps because I already have that hybrid culture within me, being half Irish American, half Puerto Rican, and having that dual identity and bilingual culture. That already brings me closer to exploring multiple worlds and bringing them together and trying to see a common ground in them in my work.
Oh my gosh, you do that very well too. Yes, I mean, I've seen anything from it was like the Virgin of Consumption, that piece, I think.
Yeah.
But it's like as you pull, even when I first started looking at it, I didn't see the little the grocery cart first that the baby was sitting in, and the credit cards dangling from her hand, and then her halo, just full of symbolism. And I love that you address capitalism too.
That is a big part of it. That work of art that you're talking about is right now at Von Mason Fine Art Gallery. It's in Upper Kirby. Yes. Heidi is working. I'm working with Heidi. I've been working with her for some time now, and I'm going to have a show there in December, and it's been really fun to be there.
It's a great gallery.
It's a great gallery.
I enjoyed talking with her. She's just got she's reinventing the idea of gallery, and I think so that. Too. That's important today. So.
I really feel so too. And she's very knowledgeable and
totally
reaches out to people and really passionate about art.
She totally is. Yeah, it sounds like a really good relationship you have going there. So, but that's where we saw the piece, and the more I saw, and then the one about addressing the issue of corn, which some people may not even be aware of how crazy that issue is. But
the children of the corn, yes. And just like what you were talking about, the piece with the Madonna with addressing capitalism and consumerism, that all started when I did my master's degree at the Savannah College of Art and Design. Nice. And I was trying to bring together two different doctrines, the doctrine that was brought through Catholicism in the New World and Catholic imagery in Spanish colonial art, and pop culture propaganda.
Yes.
So bringing those two together, because I felt that there was a connection. There's a connection between the way they enact certain doctrines and propaganda.
So true. I mean, if you think about it, it's like chasing that dollar is almost a religious effort on many people's part. So, and just our society in general, that misuse of resources, and
true.
It's hard.
Yeah, I feel that they are both stories that we tell ourselves in order to feel that there is a salvation, there's a way to happiness, either through conversion or through consumption.
Yes.
And in a way they are very similar in the way they propagate fears and hopes, and they really dive deep into the human psyche in order to really manipulate the masses, in order to redirect them and distract them from the real issues that are at hand. In the Spanish colonial conquest of the Americas, of course, they had to convert the natives in order to really make them more submissive and accepting of the new religion and the new way of life and the capitalist system. That's where it really started to be global.
Yes.
And we all know the first transnational corporation is the Catholic Church. I mean, I grew up Catholic, and I really appreciate the Catholic culture. I'm not really going against anything that is something that is just unavoidable for me. Just to see the correlation.
It's really. I mean, anything that becomes really powerful, and I've often heard the Catholic Church has, an enormous amount of wealth, and it's not just the Catholic Church, but I mean, it is interesting because I think you'll always find people who manipulate that in some way or another. It may not be. It's more about controlling,
of course,
the masses. But I agree. I mean, I think it's wonderful that people have the faith and they are able to sort through what works well and what doesn't. You know. Yeah.
What I find fascinating about the Catholic tradition, growing up in that system, is the pantheon of archetypes and the iconography,
yes.
which I fell in love for the first time. Really, I mean, really being aware of that became something very important and central in my work once I was away from that. When I went to Savannah, Georgia, I didn't see those images as much as I used to when I was growing up back home in Puerto Rico, so I missed that. So I wanted to bring those back with me. Yes. You know, there were childhood memories and all sorts of personal stories associated with these saints. Yes. Starting with St. Francis and the Madonnas and all of that, and all these art history books that my aunt was a Catholic nun who took care of me when my mom went to work as a single mom, as an English teacher, and I remember I have fond memories of those times. Yeah. So that is a way to like bring that back and appropriate those images, but in a way that is relevant to our own times as well.
Yeah, I think you do it brilliantly, and it takes a great craftsmanship to pull off what you have. I mean, you truly have experience under your belt. It's easy to see that. Thanks. As a painter. Are you using, what media are you using? Is it oils or is it?
Right now, mostly it's oils. I've been using throughout the years tempera, drawings and charcoal, pen drawings, and but now it's mostly oil painting on panel. Yes. And I use a lot of gold leaf. And I try to emulate the techniques of the Spanish colonial art, specifically the color palette of Jose Campeche, who was a Puerto Rican painter from the 18th century. Okay. That is a very big influence in my art, and many other artists as well from the period. So I try to emulate that visual vocabulary and that color scheme. And all of that, but of course over time I've become more and more loose. I was very structured with my palette. I used to have a color scale of every color and everything, and now I'm becoming more and more loose with that. And it's transforming and evolving gradually.
Well, it really creates strong imagery and interesting. You know, who influenced you and why is just part of that. I think it's really important for artists to be influenced by. You know.
And here's the thing: when I was doing my undergrad back in San Juan, Puerto Rico, most of my colleagues, classmates, and teachers were all into abstract or even installation, video performance, and other stuff. Very experimental. That's true. And I was going against that. I was learning from that, and I was okay with that, but that's my undergrad, and I was really more interested in looking back at history, art history. But of course this was in the 90s, and people didn't really want to have much to do with realistic narrative paintings, at least in that art school. And from what I hear from my friend Carrie Ann Badd, she gave an artist talk last night at the Jung Center. She was talking exactly about that.
I wish I could have been there. It conflicted,
It was really great. And she was talking about her experience at the Chicago Art Institute, and that she felt the same way. She wanted to go and learn from the old masters while everyone was looking at, painting is dead. You know, you should get over that and just move on and do installation or do other stuff. You know, and I think we live in a time right now with so much happening at a political level and on the global stage that, I mean, it's hard to be immune to that as an artist. And for me, I feel that there's no other better way to do it than through narratives.
But I think artists in general are responding to the world around them. But I agree with you. It's and having that narrative that you have really makes it clear. It comes across very clear. And then the strong imagery of the iconography and the colonialism, Spanish colonialism, is just perfect. Um,
And especially right now, I feel like we are living in the age of social media.
yes.
And you get so much attention, and there's so much opportunities to really reach out to people through art
It's
as
true.
never before. I mean,
that's so
you have a
true.
larger audience. It's a worldwide audience right
So
now.
true.
So I feel that figurative art is right now at just like Carrie Ann Bad said
Yes.
last night. It's in its second renaissance.
That makes sense
Yeah.
to me. I agree. I'm excited. Yeah, every time somebody says painting is dead, it just gets a revival. It's just like
reviving, yeah.
they just insured it. I was thinking, I know you have this show opening up. By the time the viewers see this, it'll have already opened. But
Mm-hmm.
tell us about the tarot card. I'm not sure the actual title of the show.
Tarot Novi Mundi. Tarot Novi Mundi is in Latin Tarot of the New World.
Okay.
So
Yes.
I was initially, of course, inspired by the tarot. But the thing that I really felt I wanted to express with this deck of cards, which is composed of 78 cards, which took me a year to create. Last year, I was working
Wow.
like
Yeah.
50% of my time was devoted to that.
Yes.
I really wanted to bring all the characters that I've been using throughout these years in my paintings and have them in my cards. In a way, it was more of a personal tool. It started out as something of more of a creative experiment in a way that I would just shuffle the cards and make a throw of cards, and if I have different characters showing up, this is what I would paint.
Ooh, real divination going
Yeah,
on
almost,
there.
but at a personal level, I'm not
Yeah.
trying to foretell the future or
Yeah,
anything, but
but-
foretell what I'm going to paint.
It's interesting how it
Yeah.
comes up, though, too.
That was the initial purpose of it, but then it
Yeah.
became something else because I started to do
Yeah.
some more research and digging deep into the narratives of Spanish colonial past and the conquest of the Americas and the real implications and consequences at an environmental and social level that we are experimenting today under a global capitalist system.
Yeah.
So I really found in the tarot a launch pad of narratives that would be relevant to our times. So contrary to most people that are doing tarot that are more invested in the spiritual side, which I respect and really feel an affinity to,
Yes.
I feel that there's also a social component that was missing in most of the decks I've been looking at, and I have a
Okay.
collection of decks, and I've been
Wow.
studying tarot for more than 20 years already.
Yeah.
And I felt like there was opportunity to do something and add an
Yes.
extra component to this. This for me, the tarot is an encyclopedia of archetypes and narratives.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And I know many people find tarot kind of obscure and associate this with gypsies and crystal balls and
Yeah.
and all sorts of esoteric stuff.
Yeah.
And it's part of it, and I'll accept that part. But I
Yeah.
feel like there's so much more potential to it
Oh,
as well.
totally.
And given the fact that the tarot was created initially in the Renaissance in northern Italy
Yes, yeah.
in the 15th century,
Yeah.
there's already an instant connection with the time of the conquest of the Americas.
Yeah.
So it's departing from the same visual culture. So many of the images that you see in the tarot, you can easily find in paintings of Spanish colonial America.
Isn't that interesting?
You have images of the virtues. You have images of Christ, the Madonna, that are easily juxtaposed with any of the tarot cards as they are originally
Yeah.
shown.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I love that you are, responding to this whole idea in your way for today. Because I often thought tarot was also about reflecting a little bit of the times when that particular
Yes.
deck was made, even though, it's just a symbol of something.
Yes, I think tarot, as any other artwork, is a product of its own age, of its own
totally.
time.
Yeah.
So the same as you would say in the depictions of the nativity scenes and the saints and scenes of the crucifixion during the Renaissance, you would see that Roman soldiers look more like European knights.
Yes.
So anachronic.
Yeah.
It's a product of its time. So
Definitely.
and I think they were well aware of that. They were not like trying to intend to be historically accurate.
Okay.
So as long as artists are aware of that and try to really bring our times into their work, I feel that that is a really valid concern and something worth trying to do with any kind of product from previous eras.
So this begs the question for me: are you actually making cards as
Yes.
well? Are you?
Yes, and this is the thing: the cards that you'll see at the Jung Center,
Yeah.
that they're displayed there. There are also 13 paintings that are inspired after those cards.
Okay.
But that particular deck is going to be published sometime next year. I already signed a contract with U.S. Games,
Okay.
which is one of the biggest and most well-known tarot companies.
Oh,
They're the ones
exciting.
that published the Rider-Waite tarot deck, which is the standard tarot deck that everyone uses and is influenced by to create their own decks. So these are the guys who really have that. You know,
Oh my gosh! How exciting!
I already signed up with them and I'm very excited. And I'll have a lecture on the 28th. The closing is going to be on the 28th. Okay. I'll have a lecture there at the Jung Center that's going to be all about tarot archetypes throughout history and how we can relate and associate those archetypes within our own lives. And also at a global stage and how we see this working out on politics and
wonderful.
And I'm going to have a show at Von Mason Gallery on December. The title of that exhibition is Propaganda Perpetua, Perpetual Propaganda. Which is inspired after one of the very first pieces I did back in 2007 when I was doing my thesis. And it was the starting point for all the narratives that are behind my work and the whole thesis behind the work. So it's like a summary of all the things, all the ideas that really make up the body of work that I have now.
Oh, that'll be good. That'll be good.
And I'll also have a talk there, even though I don't have the exact date for that yet. But I'll be presenting there a slideshow and talking more about the work.
Very good.
And next year there's going to be LAN, which is Latino Art Now, which is a national conference organized by the Latino Smithsonian. And I'm going to have a show as well that's going to be part of that. And there are going to be multiple shows going on. It's the Delilah Montoya with Latinx is a group of Latino artists living in Houston. They're organizing this and they're doing a very, very interesting job bringing all these artists that have Latin roots together and trying to expose their work during that conference.
Will it be at different locations?
There are going to be different locations, and this is going to be on spring, I believe, that are more into the mystical spheres of the nature of the tarot and talk about issues that are happening in the physical reality, the real world, like things like, of course, what we're doing to the environment. And all sorts of social injustices, which is already part of the current deck.
It's so great because it just creates more awareness. You're just revealing things to that we need to look at. I think it's important. In a beautiful way,
Thanks. And also the thing is recontextualizing as we see all these issues that are relevant to our times in the context of a tarot card. It already imbues the issue with a different meaning. You already see like almost a prophetic fortune telling or anticipating things to come. Like that's already in the back of people's minds, even though the tarot was not originally created to tell the future.
Oh, really?
It was a humanist tool, aristocratic card game that was used and had all these sorts of learning tools and ideas that was used by the aristocracy. So,
okay. Oh my gosh. That's fascinating too, how people just sort of eventually evolved to use
Yes.
something for another purpose, and divination, you know.
Yes, that came in later. That's
That came in
quite
later. Hey,
interesting.
here's an idea.
Yes, we already mentioned Von Mason Gallery in Houston,
Yes.
but also Evoke Contemporary in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Wonderful.
I've been working with them for some time. Very happy to be there, and I'm
Yeah.
going to be having a show there next year, which I forgot to mention as well. That's going to be in June, by the end of June, and it's all incorporating different narratives from the life of Saint Francis.
Well, a good excuse to go to Santa Fe.
A good excuse to go to Santa Fe.
We
Yes.
need a good excuse, yeah.
And then if you happen to be in Antigua, Guatemala, I've been working with, this is the gallery which I've been working with the longest,
Oh, okay.
since way back from 2009. It's Antigua Galería de Arte. It's there in the Calle del Arco, which is, there's an arch, and there's this very iconic, hard to miss, and then you have Nimpot, which is a craft store, and they have the gallery there. The new location of the gallery is there. So if you happen to be in Antigua, Guatemala during vacations, you can also find my work there.
That's a great, I'm glad you're mentioning all, you are
I'm trying to see if I don't miss any.
No, that's good.
Yes.
No, I love that you mentioned them, and kind of nice to know that you're, getting out there all over.
And of course, Luz de Jesus Gallery in LA.
Okay.
I recently had a show there with Carrie Ann Bad. This is the second time we showed together. Well, actually, the third time the first time we showed together was in Seattle.
You have a sense of humor in your work sometimes, and I don't know if you, I know you're aware of that, I'm sure, because it's a little satirical in some ways, but I love that part, just simple little things, even seeing you in some of the work, you're working and all this going on around you, and I love that part of it too. Allows us to see more who you are, and
I think that comes in the family. My brother, my sister always had this very lively sense of humor. My wife as well. People around me, in my family, and they don't take things in, let's say, in art so seriously. And sometimes I hear suggestions that sound silly, but I found like, oh, that's actually a good idea.
Yeah,
you're right.
Yes.
Why not? Let's put that in there. And I feel that's a easier way to digest such harsh, severe, and depressing issues.
I agree. Yeah.
It's whenever you make a joke, let's say of the president or anything that's going on in U.S. politics, it's a lot more accepting, and you don't feel that bad. I mean, you can bear that a little bit more. It's more bearable.
It's so true. I think sometimes the best source of news is comedians.
I think so too. Yes, and I feel it reaches out more people.
Yeah, it does. I think it does. Yeah, across the board. Okay, well, I really want to thank you for allowing me to come into your space. I always call it the sacred place, where an artist works, and it's just so telling, and you can feel the energy of what you do here. It's wonderful. I love that your baby and your wife, I haven't even heard the baby.
Very quiet.
Very
must
quiet.
be taking a nap.
That's amazing. Just love seeing where you work, and excited to see more of your work here soon, coming up. So
I wanted to thank you for making this possible, and really, it's a pleasure to do this anytime.
Thank you, thank you. I really enjoy this, and couldn't wait to come talk with you. So I'm going to tell the viewers, of course, to like, share, and subscribe so that this can reach a wider audience. And we'll be signing out now then. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
I keep reading this.
Oh, that's okay.